Well, hello. My name is Chastity Brown, and I will be talking about today the ideation phase within design thinking. But before I get into any of that, I would just kind of like to do an introduction and kind of just let you guys know who I am and then get to know you guys as well. So first, what we're going to do is we're going to drop in the chat what exactly we're coming here to learn. So if you are here to learn more about ideation techniques and processes, drop a 1 in the chat, okay? If you have an idea, you have something that you're kind of working on, but you want to expand upon those issues or solutions, drop a 2 in the chat for me. And then number 3, if you are looking for ways to expand your network and improve upon your product, drop a 3 in the chat for me. All right, 1, I like that. Okay, learning some more techniques. Awesome. All right. Okay, so yeah, and I think that it's really great that we're gonna learn different techniques on how to ideate, and even just kind of understanding what ideation is, simply because ideation is like one of the funner phases within design thinking, which is something that we're gonna talk a little bit more about today. So before we do that, I want to introduce myself. My name is Chastity Brown. I am a programs manager here at 3-Day Startup. I took education at Hill College in Texas Wesleyan. One was a 2-year and the other was a 4-year. Did a lot of volleyball. Pretty much that was my whole life. So I'm really, really good at communicating with teams, which is really cool. And then also I have a lot of experience in education, youth development. I worked with kids pretty much from pre-K to 5th grade at Elevate Collegiate Charter School, where I was a founding leader. I've done a lot of speaking engagements for Educators in Solidarity, which is a really cool organization you guys should check out if you're interested in education and teaching, or even just learning more. And I also do just a lot of youth development. I pretty much am a mentor, so I focus on my peers and younger generations a lot. So definitely have a knack for, us youth, us Gen Z. But now that you got to know me, I would like to get to know you guys. What I want you to do in the chat below is to drop your name and one fun fact about you. Maybe you like to eat pizza with pineapples on it, which is pretty good. Or maybe you jumped out of an airplane once and literally felt like your heart was dropping. So let me know your name and let me know one fun fact about you or one funny thing about you. And I'm gonna give us a minute to do so for that. I can tell you right now, a fun fact about me is that when I was younger, I actually used to really make presentations on the Cold War and the Holocaust and all things history before I got into making educational things now. So that's actually pretty cool for me. But yeah, drop in the chat your name and a fun fact about you. Now, while you guys are doing that, and we'll kind of go through that later, we're going to kind of jump straight into ideation and really kind of what that is. First, we have to kind of understand that ideation is within a method that is called design thinking. Okay, design thinking is really built up of 5 different phases, which we'll kind of talk about on the next slide. But this whole method is used for us as entrepreneurs to figure out what our customers are needing, what they're basically what issues that they're going through, what they're needing, how we can prototype it, and how we can test it. So design thinking is a great method to use, especially whenever you are collaborating with a team or trying to come up with something that's really good for your community. Now, getting into these 5 phases, I think that it's really important to note, number 1, that ideation is literally just a technique or a piece of this method that we're going to holistically focus on today. Design thinking as a whole, though, starts with empathizing, which is you're going to get some research on your customers' needs. I think that's super important, especially when it comes to customer discovery, where you go out there, you figure out what your community needs, the issues and solutions that you can figure out for each other. And then you're going to go into defining those solutions or defining those issues, okay? You're not really going to get into solutions just yet because this is where the ideation phase is going to come in. But when you define your customer's needs, it'll make it so much easier for you to ideate, which is to challenge those assumptions or challenge those ideas. All right. Once we go from ideating, we'll go to prototyping, which is like you're going to test it out. You're going to have a real physical item that we can look at, view, test out, and then put into the world to try out for new solutions. I think design thinking is an awesome method, and ideation is, in my opinion, one of the best phases that we can go into today, okay? So we're gonna really talk a lot about ideation and just different methods to get to that, or different techniques to get to where we have to go. All right, so this is where we're gonna get into the nitty gritty. If you need to, please take out a notebook, write in a pen pad if you need to, write on your laptop if you need to, however you feel like it's best to take notes, please go ahead and utilize that so that we can, get down to these methods and these techniques and set you guys up for success for your next venture, which is awesome because I love ventures. Like, I love to learn about new things going on. All right, and I'm gonna give you a couple minutes for that, a couple seconds actually, while I get this together. I do want to note one thing about ideation that's actually super important. The thing about ideation is that it is not a one-stop, shop, end-all, be-all, one idea. This is just what it's going to be. I'm going to go through this design method. I'm going to ideate. I'm going to brainstorm, and this is going to be what I'm with at the end of the day. That is often a really common misconception, only because with you being an artist, you're creating something for your community. You're creating something that matters. You're creating a product that could either be functional or fun. With that being said, you are including a lot of different variables that, of course, with the ideation phase, you will have to go back and probably tweak a little bit or learn a little bit more about your customers' needs. And that is totally okay. Every great entrepreneur, every great product has been through multiple phases of prototyping and having to go back to the drawing board of how to think about this product in a different light. So ideation is very important to how we see our process, but also how we benefit our customers and their needs in general. So please don't get discouraged if you feel like you have an idea and you have to keep going back to the drawing board. That's what all great entrepreneurs do, and that means you are a great entrepreneur. So congratulations. Okay, so with that being said, we're going to talk about different ideation techniques. All right, there's obviously a lot of them, so we're just going to run through them. But before I do that, can you please in the chat just maybe drop 1 to 2 methods, or sorry, not methods, techniques that you feel would probably kind of look like interesting, like you want to do a little bit more research on. I think that's going to be super important, especially after this workshop, for you guys to really see, like, okay, maybe I could dive a little bit deeper into brainwriting, or maybe I can dive a little deeper into the worst idea case scenario because it kind of looks interesting. And who doesn't want to think about the worst idea, especially when thinking about problems, right? So please drop in the chat 2 things maybe that you feel like you want to learn a little bit more about, and then we're going to kind of go on from there. Sorry guys, I got to mess with my puff a little bit. The girls. Mind mapping is sketching. Okay, yeah, and sketching is really similar to storyboarding, but that's a really cool method or technique as well. So that's great. Let's kind of get into 3 main techniques that I want to talk about today. Even though it's great that we have all of these techniques, I think it's really awesome, the techniques that I'm going to show you guys, because it really kind of hits on either group number one who wants to learn different techniques, group number two who wants to kind of expand on their ideas, and then also group number three who wants to kind of expand on networking and maybe going back to the drawing board to meet new customer demands or needs. Okay. So our focus today is brainstorming, mind mapping, and scamper, the scamper technique. I think that all of these are amazing. Number one, I would say, just to be a little biased, my favorite would probably be brainstorming. And that's just because I'm really, really big on collaboration. And so that is like one of the best collaborative techniques that you can utilize to come up with like a whole new innovative, wild idea. All right, so we're going to talk about that one first. If you want to write that down in your notebook or in wherever you're writing this down, our first technique is brainstorming. All right. So when we think about brainstorming, the thing that I really, really want everyone to kind of understand about brainstorming is that there is absolutely no judgment whatsoever on how you can brainstorm within your team. And so when I say that, I say basically you're going to have 4 to 5 people that you can bounce ideas off of, kind of like a ping pong table, okay? This momentum does not stop, okay? You guys are just spitballing ideas because in the end, it's more about quantity over quality. All right. So when I say quantity over quality, yes, it's great because you want quality things, but brainstorming allows you guys to really think of how many ideas can I spitball and get out on paper that may not even make sense, but somebody else can kind of bounce off of that idea, right? And this method is super fun. It's super chill. Like it's something that your team will really enjoy because truthfully, you could talk about if it's a bird or plane or if it's a dog, because obviously, as we've seen in cartoons, that's not exactly something that's like unheard of, right? So maybe if that's the case, you can bounce your idea off of, okay, well, if that's what we're seeing and that's a cool marketing aspect, how can we appeal to that emotion? Or like, how can we look at things from a different perspective of, okay, well, we're looking at it, is it a dog or a plane? Is the dog looking at us like ants? And that's just like a really, really broad example of how to use brainstorming, but it's there for you to be as creative as you possibly can be. All right. I was going to show us a video today, guys, but I think I'm going to skip this because I do want to kind of get into the other 2 techniques, but definitely if you want to look at this video, it's called Brainstorming Techniques, How to Innovate. All right, it's a great, great video, and it goes into detail about brainstorming and how you can utilize it with your team specifically. All right. Now, I want to talk about divergent thinking because divergent thinking is actually the technique that you will be using or the skill that you're going to be using within this technique, which is you're just going to sit here with your team and you're just going to process and create multiple ideas, multiple solutions that you feel like you can try to solve realistically. I'm not saying that your ideas have to be realistic. I'm saying that if you have a problem that you know realistically your community needs to figure out, okay, think of as many ideas as possible that can solve this issue, right? So we're gonna get a little practice in, which I feel like will be really fun, and I feel like it'll open you guys' mind a little bit to where you feel comfortable ideating and getting and actually flowing with these things. Nothing is, I repeat, nothing is a bad idea when it comes to brainstorming. All right, cool, great, gotta say that. Okay, so for 2 minutes, this is what we're gonna do. Utilizing divergent thinking, I want us to think about different ways that we could utilize a soda can. And I say this because number one, I'm getting more into sustainability. And number 2, understanding how to utilize the materials and things that we have within our ecosystem and our environment can really bring on an innovative aspect because it's not like you have to make something from scratch. Exactly. It's like you have a material, you understand what you're using. So with this, we're going to take 2 minutes to basically just brainstorm what can we actually do with the soda can. As many ideas as you want, do not put a cap on it. So starting now, we're going to do that. All right. And you can do this individually. We don't actually have to do this as a group, but it is a great exercise for when you do this as a group. And I'm going to start the timer. Go. Cool. I'm going to mute myself as well. All right, we have under a minute left, so try to get your ideas in. I see some really good ones already, which is awesome. All right, start wrapping up your ideas. 20 seconds. Oh, sorry, guys. Whoa, awesome. Okay. So we're gonna kind of go through some of these things that I see in the chat. Okay, so one thing I see that I think is awesome is a trap for bees. And you know, that's so crazy because I really wouldn't have thought about that. But when you think about it, we always like get annoyed whenever flies or like insects are around our soda cans because it's so easy to get like to just fall in there and like get trapped, right? So I think that's a really cool idea and I never thought of that. So thank you. Let's see. I have a candle holder, which is freaking awesome. I love candles in general. So, you know, I think that, and I'm always looking for new ways to kind of like put my waxes, you know, like the melting wax in there. I always try to do that. So that's really cool. For cleaning stains, and you know, I really think that that's interesting because like, would you like use it to scrape or like how do you use it to clean stains? You can just drop that in the chat. You don't have to like speak out loud for it, but that's awesome. Wow. And see, and I think this is the best thing about brainstorming because in the end, it's not nothing is a crazy wild idea, okay? One that I see is kind of crazy is fireworks, which makes sense because like why not? You know, like why not use it in order to secure your fireworks as you're trying to pop them into the sky, you know? Or like to, you know, put like all the pop rocks in there and like shake it up and it's like a bomb. Not a real bomb, but like a like a pretty fun one. So that's cool. I think that this was a really, really good exercise. And I think that now we understand brainstorming definitely does not have to be something that's super serious. And it can be fun and creative. I call this creative collaboration, but just learned that it's really brainstorming. So you're welcome. All right. So the next thing that we're going to go on to doing, if it'll let me. Is it still going? Yes. Oh my gosh. Sorry guys. The alarm is like going off on the timer and I'm really trying not to be freaked out about that. Okay, awesome. So now that we did brainstorming, I'm sure everyone can just give me thumbs up, thumbs down if you feel like you kind of like brainstorming and that's like a really good ideation technique that you would kind of run with. Next method that we're going to go on to is mind mapping. And I really, really, really like mind mapping because when you mind map, this is more for expanding upon ideas that you already have or a specific theme, topic, or issue that you already have. And it helps you to visually see what you are working with, right? So mind mapping is a visual technique that establishes relationships between the problem your team is trying to solve and potential solutions, okay? And I think that's really important is because it is visual, okay? So this is something, especially if you do have those teammates or people on your team or your peers that are more visual, have to see it drawn out, have to see the pathways of it. This is a perfect way to accommodate to everyone that is within your team and be inclusive about the way that everyone kind of thinks and learns, right? So this is the picture of a mind map, and we're gonna go through this as far as the different components of the mind map, and then I'll show you more of how we can utilize the mind map to come up with really, really cool, innovative ideas specifically for this topic that we have, right? So within this picture right here, you see that the center or the main theme is mind mapping. This is something that you might want to note and write down as well, is that when we are mind mapping, the flow of mind mapping goes like this. You have your center or your central theme within the middle of the mind map, okay? This is what we're going to be talking about. This is the issue that we feel like we kind of want to expand upon. So that is where it's going to go, within the center of the whole diagram. Then what we're going to do is expand upon this one thing, right? So for an example, within this picture, we're talking about mind map. That is the central theme. But then we're going to more expand upon different ways that we could use mind mapping, which is within benefits, planning, creativity. You know, how can you use mind mapping in that way? Productivity. How does that really help out with how does mind mapping help with productivity if that's something you wanted to work a little bit more on? And then collaboration. How does that help with our collaboration efforts, right? From there, with these main subcategories, you guys will come up with more evidence to support these categories, right? So I'm going to go through this. First in the center is your main theme, your main topic, okay? Next, expanding from this main topic is going to be probably like 4 to 5 different subcategories that you can put with a phrase, a word, something that's really simple to where it's like, hey, really easy, one word done. Type of thing. And then you'll go into your evidence. So for planning, the evidence of planning or mind mapping being really good for planning is for projects, for goals, and for strategies, right? So that is something that we see right off the bat that, okay, mind mapping can really help us out with these 3 different things. And this is the evidence that we have for that. For collaboration, it helps with teamwork, sharing, and colleagues. Right? So that's what's within this subcategory. We're going to do this together. And I feel like because I'm also very hands-on and I'm also visual, this just, you know, I feel like this will really help you guys to more understand what mind mapping is about. All right. Okay. So for 2 minutes, and this is once we go through this, I'll give you guys a 2-minute think tank. But on the next page, I basically have already drawn out a mind map for you. And we're going to talk about that. And then I'm going to give you guys some time to think of 2 to 3 pieces of evidence that supports the subcategories that we have already placed out on here, okay? Now, when I say that, this is what we're looking at. Today, we're going to be talking about smelly feet. Our product and our audience is tired of smelly feet. Right? So we know our topic, we know our idea. Now we just kind of want to expand upon that and really understand how can we help our users with smelly feet. All right? Yeah. Oh, snap. we're going to get to the nitty gritty of this one. All right. So for all my athletes out there, I used to be an athlete, and I felt like one of the main things that always contributed to my smelly feet were my shoes, right? My shoes always contributed to my smelly feet because if you're wearing sandals, obviously, like you have free breathing room and air. But then in tennis shoes or like my sports shoes, it was like the material was very thick. You know, if I was sweating, like it would seep into my shoes. So maybe that's something that like we could kind of expand upon. Like, okay, what's wrong with the shoes, right? Another subcategory that I have down here is skin. I know a lot of people, especially with me, I have excessive sweating tendencies. So of course, like if I get a little clammy or if I'm wearing socks and shoes together, my feet are going to be sweating. And especially if you have excessive sweating tendencies, what exactly can we do in order to like kind of help that out? So within the skin category, for example, an evidence that I would have is sweat. Boom. Or dry skin. Okay, if you deal with excessive sweating, or if you deal with dry skin and you have to put lotion on your feet, okay, then I guess that would more go into products, or like, different feet products that we use for our skin, right? And then so on and so forth. So the other subcategories I have is the weather and exercising, which can also affect the way that our feet literally smell, right? So for 2 minutes, what I'm going to do is, it's 1:33 right now. What I'm going to do is I'm going to give you guys some time to kind of just put some things in the chat that will give evidence as to why our skin is one of the things that make our feet smell swelly, or why exercise is one of the things that make our feet smell really nasty or whatever. So starting now, just drop 1 to 2 pieces of evidence in the chat. Oh, I guess I could put myself on mute, huh? About 1 more minute. 1 more minute. Great, friends. Okay, so I see some really good answers, and we're gonna go through this, okay? So for the subcategory of skin, some evidence that we have for that is maybe a skin condition, right? So we can make that for one word, we can say skin conditions. Boom. Okay, we have to keep that into account, right? Especially when we are figuring out solutions for smelly feet. And skin allergies to socks, shoes, or detergents. And that is so important because there are plenty of people in the world who have skin allergies that honestly sometimes we don't take into account when choosing different materials or choosing different products that we use on our feet, on our bodies in general, right? And I say that more in a productive fashion, right? Not like, of course, our customers thinking about that for themselves because they know that, hey, this is something that I deal with. But maybe as a productive side of it, that's something we can take into consideration as well. Yeah, definitely types of material for shoes is a big one. You never know what type of material you can use, especially if you are trying to be more sustainable. What does that look like? How can it be also durable, right? But not like something that traps in different types of oils. Or maybe if that's the case and we know that it has to do with the material, there are different foot powders out there, right? So then you can expand on the foot powders. And then maybe there's chafing, right, for skin. So these are really, really great ideas. And I hope that you guys can see that you have already figured out different types of problems, but also different types of solutions subconsciously, because as you were figuring out these problems, you were sitting there saying, okay, well, there needs to be a solution for this, right? So this just gives you plenty of different ways to solve this one problem within like the different categories that you feel like matter to your customer. All right, so this was a really great exercise. You guys should give yourselves a pat on the back. That was really nice. I really like that. All right. So, and I think this is what's really good to know about mind mapping is that it can be used for literally anything. It can be used for organizing. It can be used for creating. It can be used for presenting and communicating ideas, right? Especially if you have a large team. It simplifies task and project management as well. So if you know that you have an idea or you have a central theme, utilize mind mapping because it just helps you to see it in real time as you're talking about it and connecting it together, right? So I really like mind mapping, and I think that's a really cool one. Brainstorming is kind of still my favorite. It's okay. All right. So this is going to be I feel like the funnest activity that we have today, which is the Scamper method. Okay. Now, Scamper is an acronym, right? And it really, really helps mainly to elaborate or to improve on an idea that you already have existing, and you think that it could really be suited to go over again, especially if your audience is looking for something different. You can utilize Scamper to say, okay, how can we better expand upon this idea? How can we change it? How can we improve upon it, right? So write these down. This is pretty much the acronym for Scamper, okay? So for the S, we have substitute, okay? So when we think about substitute, it's like, what can we swap out, right? If you have a hairbrush, if you're producing a hairbrush that is like has a straightening quality, but also detangles, then, and your customers or the people that is trying out your prototype, or maybe you're doing research on different types of hair straighteners, that have brushes attached to it, what exactly could you swap out to make your idea or invention a little bit more customer friendly, even maybe a little bit more friendly to all hair types instead of just one? So that's something that you can think about. Combine. If we were to use the hair straightener as an example again, who can you collaborate, or how can you collaborate in order to improve the quality of your product or your venture, right? With the hair straightener, let's say we all know that they're always trying to sell us on these silicone plates that heat up, right? Is that really going to help improve your idea as far as heat damage goes? That could be something that you work upon, that you can improve upon. And you can collaborate with someone to kind of like get together and get a cool idea going. Then you have adapt. So how can we adapt to a new type of audience? Let's say that for inclusive purposes, you go into a building and you don't see wheelchair accessibility or elevators, or even for people that aren't on wheelchairs and need help visually. So how can you adapt to a new audience to say, hey, I think that this idea is great, but I want to adapt to more than just a normal type of, you know, in the lines type of audience. You're looking more for how can you be more accessible? That's a new type of audience, right? Then we go on to M. M is for modify, which means what components can be changed, right? If we are looking at being more sustainable, right? What components can be changed within your design or product that is more sustainable? And that can also be not only beneficial to you, to your environment, but to your customer as well. What can we put to another use, right? What other use can it serve? It's really hard to say with a straightener, right? But let's say another use that it can serve is every single cent that gets donated, or every single penny that you have, or whoever buys, let's say whoever buys this straightener, let's say every single penny goes towards, or 50% goes towards a foundation that you really care about, or 50% goes towards helping to get food and supplies. You know, it doesn't have to always be put to another use as in how can I utilize this, but it can also be how can I utilize this in a social impact way as well. And I think that's really important to note, because I don't think a lot of people kind of look at it in that light, right? They're only looking at the product, when it comes down to it, you can utilize different aspects or put this to use in another type of way. Then we go on to eliminate, which is E. What is unnecessary, right? What is completely, doesn't have to be in the package, doesn't have to be in the workshop, doesn't have to be in the anywhere, right? What can you also cut cost on? And I think that's what where eliminating really comes in, is because if you're looking at your business plan, or you're ideating and you're thinking of your business plan in mind, you know, what can you eliminate that's kind of unnecessary or can be replaced by a, you know, a substituted, which is for S, can be substituted for maybe a lower cost item, but that's still really, really efficient and durable for your customer. And then that goes into reverse, which is R. What happens if the product is reorganized? Like, even in the ideation phase, what happens when you go back to the drawing board, right? What thing did we have to reorganize or redo in order for us to get to this new solution for our customer? All right. So Scamper is a really, really good technique to use, I feel like, especially if you have an idea. Now, this can be used when you don't have an idea. I don't think that it's really, I think you would be using it more for, hey, there's a product that I really want to use. I'm doing some research. Can I use the Scamper model in order for me to already have this in mind and say, hey, this is what I feel like I could substitute, combine, I could do this, this, and that. It really helps you out with that ideation process as well. So I love Scamper. All right, so my favorite word, creative collaboration, okay, which is literally just brainstorming in a very creative and innovative way, right? Okay, so during this activity, we will all observe a product and make assumptions based on the Scamper method, right? But first, we're gonna do an example together. And I think it's really fun. I find a lot of people kind of like this activity, so let's see. All right, I'm gonna give you guys a minute. For a minute, I want you to tell me what you can see, what you can taste, and what you can smell from looking at this picture right here. 1 minute. For sure. For sure. All right. So let's see, something that I can see. I can feel static electricity. Yes. Oh my gosh, going down the slide, especially if you were ashy, was like terrible. Like you were getting shocked simply because of the fact that you had no type of friction going on for you. So that's so cool. I can smell plastic and nylon and the gas from the air pump engine. Yes. And like I should have did like what can you hear? Right? Like what can you hear? If I were to do what could I hear from this, I would definitely I would definitely hear the air pump, right? And of course we hear kids screaming. So with this being said, right, you've observed it, you can see what you smell, you can feel the rope burns from the net, right? Now, just looking at this picture, this is where we're going to utilize the scamper method, right? So there are plenty different products within this picture, within this play area. Now, if I were to use the scamper method, I'm going to use it on a specific product, right? Or we can use it for a specific environment. But just for this sake, we're going to use it for a product, right? So my product is the slide, right? That's like the main thing in here. And I can tell you right now that the main thing I have learned from the scamper method is that I can substitute something, right? That's the S. I can substitute on this slide maybe a different type of glaze or gloss that's slipperier, or maybe I can improve upon this by, instead of just delivering the slide, I'm going to collaborate or combine with another company that sells really slippery, oily things, and go ahead and incorporate that in my package, so that if the place needs something to help with the maintenance of the slide, especially on the first try, I'm going to go ahead and give them a collaboration, give them a thing that we collaborate with, which is this really slippery, oily type of substance that goes on the slides to make it less burn, but also more fun, right? So that is how we're going to utilize this exercise today. Okay, I utilized the scamper, I said what I observed, and then I utilized scamper in order to improve upon it. Okay, so I'm gonna have you guys do this on your own, which is the next one. And I put the scamper model at the bottom for you so you guys can just see in real time, this is what scamper stands for, right? So for 2 minutes until 150, go ahead, do the same process, what you see, smell, and taste, and then utilize scamper, one of the methods in scamper, in order to improve upon the idea, all right? And you can, in this slide, pick out maybe one object, or you can pick out a central theme, like self-care or hygiene or something like that. So go ahead and do that. And I'll pause. Okay, awesome. So, one thing that I can see is that we went more with a theme, right? Which is more of like a self-care type of thing, right? So I can see the spa. And honestly, I would see the spa simply because when you think about all of these products, like you think of like, oh, I'm grooming myself and I'm making myself presentable, or I'm prepping myself in some type of way. So the fact that you can see the spa is like really, really good, and it has really soft textures, right? And aesthetics. Um, and then you would substitute the scrunchie for a lip balm, which I think makes sense simply because if you were to, let's say this was a package deal, right? All of these things were your product, and you were trying to appeal to the theme of self-care and love, right? A way that we can improve your product is, okay, you notice that you don't have a lot of moisturizing qualities that could definitely benefit. A lip balm or a lotion is something that will up the game simply because it's wintertime. Let's say if you were selling this for wintertime, I believe more women would want to go, or I say women because we're the main consumers, but let's not forget about our guys, right? Because they can get self-care packages too. A way to improve is to think about, oh, you don't want anybody to have crusty lips for the winter, or oh, this will really, really smell good and make their lips feel really good and luscious, adding to the confidence factor, right? So definitely, this is a great, great way to really look at improvements for your product or products that are already around you. And I think I love this method and I love this activity because it really allows you to think and get and grasp into what's going on with the products that are just in front of you, right? All right, we were going to do another one, but for time's sake, we're just going to go ahead and skip to the recaps plus questions. So what I want you to do in the chat is go ahead and write an answer to one or two of these questions, totally up to you. I won't be sharing, but that's fine. Like, I want you guys to share them. And of course, I would love to go back and read them. But question number one is, how has your thinking on ideation changed, right? How has that completely been flipped around? Do you feel like it's easier? Do you feel like it's a little bit more advanced than you were thinking before? Or is it kind of still the same, right? Option two is using the Scamper method. What are 3 ways to improve a product? Literally, what are 3 ways that you feel like you can utilize within Scamper to improve a product, right? Very straightforward. And then number 3 is, what do you think your favorite method to use is, right? Like, what is your favorite method? Like, do you like the brainstorming or do you like the mind mapping? Because I think that's really cool. Or do you like Scamper, which really, really helps you out with the improvements of products and thinking in new ways, right? Okay, as you're dropping that in the chat, does anybody have any questions over anything? If you do, and you don't want to say them out loud, obviously, you can definitely hit me up. I will have my my information at the end, and I can also drop it in the chat. But questions, anybody?